The weather is warming up, and that usually means more houses are coming onto the market. Now, this should be the perfect combination for a robust market, but it just isn't turning out that way. So what's wrong with housing and what's happening with rentals?
The wealthy around the world are always looking to invest their money wisely, and for some international homebuyers, that translates to home buying in the United States. International homebuyers are attracted to the U.S. for a variety of reasons. Real estate brokers estimate for the first time the Chinese have become the biggest foreign buyers of apartments in Manhattan, taking the mantle from the Russians, whose activity has dropped off since the unrest in Ukraine. According to Douglas Elliman, real estate brokers Eileen Su and Catherine Jin, the market is right for Chinese buyers.
The majority of our business, I would say, is working with Asian buyers and investors coming from overseas.
Real estate experts say the Chinese interest is mainly a valuation play. Many Chinese buyers are switching their interest away from markets like Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Singapore amid fears that prices have soared to frothy levels in those cities. The Chinese are not the only ones buying property. People from close to 70 different countries are investing their money in the U.S.
I would say New York is a very interesting city for them. There's a lot of excitement and they feel the energy, and investing in Asia and in China, in China it's a little bit tricky.
Due to the demand, economists expect home prices to keep rising, but they don't expect the foreign buyers to sell their properties soon.
The CEO of Rapid Realty, Anthony Lolli, now joins us to talk about what's happening with housing. So great to see you, and welcome back to Fresh Outlook.
Yes.
All right, so we'll talk about the housing market on the buying side and talk about what's happened. We've seen the interest rates go up a full percentage point. So that's one thing that's led to not as much money around, but tell us what's happening.
Well, there's a lot more flexibility in bank lending. Even though the interest rate did go up a percentage point, there's still more flexible terms. So if you're talking about buying multifamily properties, there's still 3% interest rate opportunities out there. So in addition to that, there's institutional and private equity buyers just snatching things up.
But it's been kind of a boom, bust, boom. 2006, of course, was the peak right now, but we're still kind of 20% below that. Do you see it bouncing back, or do you see us, there's been a lot of predictions in this last week that it's going to continue to go down?
Well, I think it's going to go down because there's not that much inventory. People are hanging on to their real estate. They're not putting it out on the market. It doesn't make sense right now to sell when a week or two later it's going to be worth more. So people are really just hedging their bets and holding on, and people that are selling are looking into going into other states where there's still opportunities.
Now, Dr. Mckoy, we don't want you to leave us, but we understand that you're going to be looking in Illinois. Tell us a little bit about what you've been doing in terms of shopping around and what your struggles have been.
So actually, right now we're only looking to get an apartment because we're moving to the Chicago area. We're going to be in the suburbs, a little outside Chicago. And yeah, everything we've heard is the closer you try to get to Chicago, the prices just skyrocket. You can't get anything near Chicago. And it's just becoming the gap between either very nice neighborhoods or very dangerous neighborhoods. And it's just that type of gap, and the prices are just so dramatically different. So what we're now looking to do is we're just going to get an apartment, and then we're just really going to basically figure out once we figure out our budget, try to do our best. But yeah, this disparity in price, originally we thought this was simply a New York issue, but this seems to be an urban issue throughout the U.S.
And I was going to say, this has done a lot to the rental market as well, which is going up, and there's so much demand, so they're able to increase their prices, because I also have been shopping for both either a condo or for a place, and it's unbelievable how expensive it is.
Sure. I mean, to add with what he said was that the fact is sellers now have a choice. They can tell their broker, I don't want to talk to anyone that's a finance buyer. I only want to talk to all cash buyers. So that really kind of makes it an uneven playing field.
Well, also as a Midwestern, being in New York, they have brokers here, and they make a lot of money. That's you, right? Where, when you're in Indiana and Illinois, it doesn't work that way. I mean, you just do it yourself. So that's a whole side business. Plus, about the foreigners coming in, I don't know, I think the legislators haven't turned around. They can make the economy better so more Americans can buy. I think this is a bad law. I don't like it at all.
Well, there's a couple of different towns over by me in northern New Jersey that have completely been taken over one town is completely Russian. It's unbelievable. And like we saw that story before, it's fallen off a little bit because of the unrest with Ukraine, but it's unbelievable how much property they own.
Sure. I mean,
Yeah, but should you be given a visa? I mean, that's what the members of Congress want to do. They just want to throw in a visa, really?
well, there are
That's
limited
odd.
restrictions. I mean, you can't refinance, so you have to put that money, and it's a minimum of $500,000. Doesn't mean it's the maximum. You can buy something that's more. But, you know, it's all plays into the EB-5 program and everything else. I mean, it's the power of the visa.
So talk to me about your predictions for the market in the next year.
Well, I think what's keeping the banks competitive to actually lend to regular U.S. buyers is the private money out there. They're serving as banks as well and competing with the banks. So I think that's a good thing in some sense because they're in the business of lending money. So if people are from foreign countries buying all cash, that kind of takes up a lot of market share. And then they're buying cash with the restriction of not being able to pull it out with a local bank. I mean, that's a big deal. So we have to kind of see how that balances itself out.
Well, 2006, as we said before, was the peak. Phoenix, San Francisco, and Las Vegas all saw their markets continue to grow, but now all of a sudden they've started to slow down. So the question is, do you guys have concerns about what this means for the economy?
Well, it does seem like people are not buying as much and doing like you. They're, renting apartments.
Yeah, I mean, my instinct, and I'm really just learning a lot listening, but my instinct that actually might be a good thing. I mean, just on a basic economic level, it's good when people own property. And if property is becoming so overpriced that people aren't owning property, that just feels to me like a bubble that's going to be destabilizing in effects that we maybe don't understand. So for prices to be going down, especially in some of the more Western and Midwestern cities, my instinct is that's a good thing, but I can't admit to knowing enough about economics.
What about you, Anthony, since you deal with a lot of the banks and stuff like that? Does it worry you about just the economy overall? Is this an indication that the economy, we might see another bust?
No, I think that these people that are buying these properties, they're not buying whole. This is temporary. They're looking for a safe haven. They're looking for a place to park their money for a year or two. And I think that you're going to see some of this inventory slowly being released back into the economy. So that's also going to create more stimulation.
But what about the building? That building is also down. So again, that's always an economic indicator. Does that provide any concerns?
Well, I think, again, it's a disenchantment. I mean, someone like yourself, who you're looking to buy some homes, you see the skyrocket prices, and then when you finally make an offer, you're outbid. I think people are going to do exactly that. They're going to rent, wait it out, and then wait till things cool off, and then you'll see a big burst. So there's obviously no demand.
So you're optimistic?
Yes.
I mean, and as a buyer in the market, that's my instinct too. My instinct too is that the value of land is becoming so high that you've priced yourself out of the market and you're going to have to come down. And is that when you say people are just parking their money here, is that their assumption that I'm actually buying low and I'll sell higher later? I mean, is that the instinct?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about rate of return. So
yeah.
There's equity appreciation value when you buy real estate. There's obviously refinancing value, but that's off the table if you're going through the visa program. But then there's the value that you would get from the cash flow if you rent it out, even if it's a single family property.
I think Dr. Mckoy is going to interview you later.
Dr. McCoy is going to interview you.
Help you out, right?
No, that's
Take
going to
Illinois,
happen.
that's good.
I'm taking mental notes here.
Well, of course, it's tight credit also right now, but also a lot of folks haven't seen their incomes go up very much as well. So I think a lot of people feel safer sometimes renting. Have you found that as well, Anthony?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, rental gives you a lot of agility. It gives you the ability to move from here and there. And the amenities are just impeccable. All the things that you get when you're a renter, especially if you're going to live in an apartment building, a luxury apartment building, it's better than owning.
Well, I read a report how people in the country are moving more to urban dwellings. Is that the case?
Yes, absolutely.
That's what you're saying.
Sure.
It's easier.
It is. It's much
cheaper in a way.
easier, and there's no commitment. So that's.
And I just feel like renting begets renting. I mean, again, this is someone who's on the market because I'm now nervous to buy. Another reason I'm nervous to buy a house is because if people are renting, they're not buying, so I'd be saddled with a house I can't sell.
Right.
So that's another concern.
But you're a young couple. You're with a new baby. And a lot of people would think that this would be the time to buy. But I've talked to a lot of young couples that are saying, "Hey, I don't want to buy," and what concerns me is that feeling that people have that unrest. They're still worried about the economy, and that will always contribute to a bad economy.
Yeah, I mean, I think the nervousness about buying, at least certainly ours, and I think in general, is do I know that this job is permanent? If I knew that this job was permanent and I would be settled here, then yeah, I could buy a house and think, okay, I'll be here for 20 to 30 years, and then we'll see the economy go from there. But if I don't know how my job's going to go, then I certainly do not want to be saddled with a house that I'll have to sell in a market that's unstable.
And
That's
so
a
the
great
reality,
point.
people can't afford it. I mean, let's look at it. I mean, a lot of people, they absolutely can't buy a house. They can't get the credit. They can't make it work.
Sure.
They have no choice.
The Bank of England came out with a study and I guess it was just yesterday, saying that they believe that the housing market in England is going to crash, and they're saying the same thing is going to happen here in the U.S. Again, I know you're being optimistic, you're being our cheerleader here, Anthony, but what do you say to that?
Well, I think there's less and less financed properties by people that can't afford them. So I don't really see a crash. If you're talking about savvy investors buying all cash, what is there to crash? You know, they're buying at the low end of the market. Things are going to continue to go up. I don't think that's a possibility at all, especially since the banks have been more loose, but they're still careful. And as you mentioned, you still have to qualify to get a mortgage. So there aren't people that are in over their head. I think that there is no market for the buy and flip because there's a lot of transaction costs associated with that. But for someone like yourself, you want that freedom and flexibility. So if you buy a home, and you take a mortgage out, and you switch careers, you'll sell that home definitely for more than what you purchased for it. But there's prepayment penalties on the original mortgage that you took. There's capital gains. There's all sorts of different things that you have to factor in. And you might want to consider doing a 1031 exchange. There's all different strategies nowadays. You
Again,
have to
Dr.
In other
McKoy,
words,
here you go.
big
Here's
commitment.
1031.
Huge commitment.
Question mark?
Here you go, Dr. McKoy. I've got it right here. I wanted to ask you just more on a personal level. Of course, we're here in New Jersey and the New York area, and a lot of the areas where Sandy hit. Do you think that's going to be a good investment?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of beachfront properties now that are trading at decent numbers. Summer rentals are always going to be hot. I think that people are kind of over it. And there are even places where you can still get insurance on some of these properties. So it does make sense. You just kind of have to play the prediction game. Will this happen again? And, you know, you're kind of built to suit, you know.
There you go, ma'am. Please buy it while I visit. Well, if your house gets on time, that'd be a good investment for you.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that later. Anthony, always a pleasure.
No,
Thanks for
always a
coming
pleasure.
here
Thank
to
you.
Fresh Outlook. And keep it here, the show. We've got to look at some of the lighter topics of the week. The lightning round is next.